Before any of this starts, we need to meet Art Jeffries, an undercover FBI agent. Most agents in his line of work learn to follow orders, trust the system, and see the world in black and white. Art was never built that way. He saw people, not targets, and on every operation, his one goal was keeping people alive. That instinct made him excellent at his job, but it also made him a liability to the people above him. One earlier case, a bank robbery that ended in disaster because he couldn't save a child inside, had already cost him his reputation and his rank. For a man like Art, second chances don't come as a promotion. They come disguised as another kid who needs saving. In a small town in South Dakota, a man named Edgar Hallstrom, driven by extremist beliefs, seizes a bank and holds about a dozen people hostage, backed by his men. Art is inside too, working undercover, posing as one of the gunmen. His face is soaked in sweat from the pressure of the standoff, and he keeps trying to talk Edgar down, but Edgar is locked into his own convictions and won't budge. Art notices a young hostage, a boy caught in the middle of Edgar's standoff, terrified and completely out of his depth. Art breaks off a piece of chocolate, shares it with him to earn a little trust, and quietly convinces him to walk up to Edgar and simply ask to go home. The boy does exactly that. Edgar responds by striking him hard with a pen, knocking him to the ground, then locks eyes with Art in open defiance. Art knows the window to talk Edgar down is closing fast and pushes him to get on the phone with the negotiators outside. Before that call can happen, the FBI's tactical team storms the building without warning. Gunfire breaks out, windows shatter, and Edgar and his men are gunned down. In the chaos, the boy is shot too. Art drops to the floor to protect himself, then sees the boy stumbling out from behind a table just as a bullet hits his chest. Art rushes to him, pressing down on the wound, screaming for a medic, but by the time help reaches them, the boy is already gone. Furious and shattered, Art storms over to Hartley, the supervisor who ordered the raid, standing there calm as if none of it touches him. Art tells him he'd asked for more time, and they'd stormed the place anyway. Hartley shrugs it off, saying they answer to Washington. Art, disgusted by how little the deaths seem to matter to him, punches him in the face. The fallout is swift. Art is hauled in front of his boss, Joe Lomax, who has a psychiatric evaluation in hand, flagging Art for paranoia and hallucinations. Lomax tells him his days in undercover work are over, and that from now on he's on a very different assignment, wiretapping and surveillance instead of field work, essentially a slow death for a career agent like him. Art refuses to break, refuses to hand them the surrender they're looking for, and dares Lomax to do his worst. While Art starts sliding into bureaucratic purgatory, we meet Simon Lynch, a 9-year-old boy with autism who experiences the world through patterns and pictures. His routines are precise down to the smallest gesture, and his parents love him deeply, careful and gentle with his boundaries. At school, Simon's teacher hands him a new puzzle magazine. Buried in the word searches and mazes, Simon finds a page packed with letters, numbers, and symbols, meaningless to anyone else, but to him it reads like a clear picture. He goes straight to the phone and dials the number hidden inside the code. That call lands inside an advanced government laboratory belonging to the National Security Agency. A message appears congratulating whoever solved the puzzle, and 2 code experts, Dean Crandell and Leo Podransky, spelled out phonetically as P-Dransky, stare at it in disbelief. This wasn't a game. It was a live test of a new encryption system called Mercury, a program that cost roughly $2 billion to build, one they were certain no one could ever break. When they get Simon on the phone, one of them can barely process what he's asking. A 9-year-old just did the impossible. Their boss, Lieutenant Colonel Nick Kudrow, spelled out phonetically as Ko-Dro, is overseas in Bangkok at the time, briefing senior officials on a security plan. When an urgent alert comes in, he calmly excuses himself, steps into a private room, and scans his fingerprint to unlock a secure case. The message inside is unmistakable. Someone has cracked Mercury. Kudrow doesn't blink. Back home, he meets with Dean and Leo, furious that they published anything that could be intercepted, and tells them flatly that Simon isn't a genius kid to be celebrated. He's a threat to national security. Kudrow decides there's only one acceptable outcome, and it has to leave no trace behind. He sends 2 men to handle it, assassins named Peter Burrell and Shays. That same night, a car pulls up outside the Lynch family's house. A bald man in a suit steps out, posing as a police detective, spinning a story about the neighborhood school bus. Simon's mother offers him coffee, and without warning, he shoots her in the back, then shoots Simon's father in the head, He stages the scene with total precision, arranging it to look like a murder-suicide, wiping down the weapon, and firing a stray shot into the wall to sell the story. What he doesn't find is Simon, hidden in a small crawl space tucked inside his bedroom closet, silent and terrified while the killer searches every corner of the house. Unable to find the boy, the assassin finally gives up and leaves, meeting his getaway driver Shays waiting down the block. The next day, the case lands on Art's desk, dumped there mostly to push him toward quitting, since Chicago police already assume it's an open and shut murder-suicide. At the scene, Art runs into an old colleague, Detective Jack Nichols, who's ready to close the case. But something about it doesn't sit right with Art. The blood spatter doesn't line up with the story, and he can't understand how a struggling family could afford the $1,500 handgun found at the scene. He searches the boy's room and eventually finds the hidden crawl space in the closet, and inside it, Simon, alive and in shock. Simon is rushed to the hospital and placed under guard. In the ambulance, he fights against his restraints, panicking, and when a paramedic tries to loosen them, Art insists they stay on for his own safety. At the hospital, Art collects a set of educational picture cards Simon dropped, finds one with a photo of his mother, and gently tries to connect with him, showing him the cards one by one. A nurse pulls Art aside to explain that Simon's autism means sedatives won't calm him, and interrogating him won't work either. That night, alone in his apartment, Art can't shake the memory of the boy who died in the bank standoff. Exhausted and unable to sleep, he goes out for a drink but finds no comfort there either, and ends up staring at Simon's picture cards instead. When he returns to the hospital, the guards outside Simon's room are gone. He's told Simon was transferred to the pediatric ward on the authority of his parents, an impossibility since they're both dead. Art knows immediately it's a trap. He races upstairs, finds Simon's new room empty, and comes face to face with a man in a doctor's coat, the same assassin who killed his parents, Peter Burrell. Art grabs Simon and runs, spotting his reflection in a window and pulling him out from behind a hospital bed just in time. They reach the elevator, where Burrell blocks the door with a hidden gun trained on Art. Art calmly thanks him for the ride, hits the button for the next floor, and the moment the doors open, shoves Simon out and bolts. Burrell shoves his way past a gurney to give chase, forcing Art to steal an ambulance and speed off with Simon, Burrell firing at them from a car behind. Simon, panicking, starts hitting the ambulance's siren controls. Art slams the brakes, sending the ambulance spinning across the highway, then grabs Simon and leaps the safety barriers on foot to escape. The danger isn't over. Disoriented, Simon wanders toward a set of train tracks with a train barreling toward him, and Art yanks him clear just in time, then shields him with his own body as a second train roars past from the other direction. They manage to board a train themselves, but a man in a black jacket, Shays, has followed them aboard and starts hunting them down. Art spots him and confronts him in the empty space between train cars. The fight is brutal, ending with Art shoving him off the train, killing him instantly as another train speeds past. Catching his breath, Art asks Simon who he really is and shows him the picture cards again, writing his own name on the back of one, trying to prove he's a friend rather than a threat. Simon isn't convinced yet and stays loud and distressed. With nowhere else to go, Art takes Simon to the only person he trusts, his old partner and friend, Tommy Jordan. Tommy's wife and son let them in, though clearly shaken by how beaten up Art looks. While Tommy's wife tends to his injuries, Simon quietly follows Tommy's young son into the kitchen, a small but hopeful sign that he's beginning to feel safe. Tommy is furious, though, telling Art that dragging his family into this conspiracy isn't fair to any of them. He refuses to get involved directly, but hands over his car keys anyway, telling Art he's on his own from here. That night, hiding in the car with Simon, Art is haunted by flashbacks of the boy who died in the bank standoff, while Simon rocks back and forth, still deep in shock. Art is running on fumes, physically and emotionally, but he pushes through the exhaustion rather than give in to it. By morning, he wakes to find the car door open and Simon gone, wandering the street in a daze. He brings him back safely, shaken by how close they came to losing each other completely, and quietly resolves that he won't let his guard down again. Simon dials the same number from the code again, and this time Art is there to hear it. He tells the NSA cryptographers plainly that he's FBI, and a frightened Leo gives him an encrypted email address to arrange contact. Art brings Simon to a library, watching in disbelief as the boy decodes an encrypted reply in seconds. It points to a meeting at the Wrigley building, spelled out phonetically as Wrigley the next morning. Knowing he can't bring Simon into a meeting like that, Art finds a woman at a coffee shop. Stacy tells her he's Simon's older brother and asks her to keep an eye on him for a few minutes. At the meeting, Dean starts explaining everything. Mercury, Kudrow, the whole operation, but before he can finish, Burrell shoots him dead. Art spots a security camera nearby and manages to grab the footage before rushing back to the coffee shop, only to find Stacy and Simon already gone. He finds them on the street. Stacy furious and has to pull Simon close and hide his face as a police car rolls past. That night, Art shows up at Stacy's apartment. She opens the door but keeps the chain latched, telling him she saw him hiding from the police outside. Once she sees Simon with him, she lets them both in, and her apartment becomes their hideout in a city that suddenly wants them both dead. Meanwhile, at his own apartment, Leo prepares 2 letters using an old typewriter to avoid digital surveillance, one addressed to Art and a carbon copy meant for the Senate Oversight Committee. He separates the paper from the black carbon sheet and tosses the carbon in the wastebasket. But before he can do anything else, Burrell is already standing behind him. Burrell kills him instantly, takes the letters, calmly strips off his gloves, and walks out without leaving a trace, overlooking the discarded carbon copies in the trash. The next morning, Leo's girlfriend, an NSA analyst named Emily Lang, finds his body and is horrified. Searching the apartment, she spots the typewriter and the wastebasket and finds the crumpled carbon paper inside, Leo's last message. She brings it straight to the FBI and asks to meet Art. Tommy quietly arranges the meeting at a bar, where Art sits with one hand tucked inside his jacket, ready for anything. Emily's hands shake as she sets the envelope on the table and explains that Leo had been about to mail the originals, which have since vanished, leaving only these carbon copies. Art unfolds the black paper and reads Leo's own words, laying out how Kudrow was behind Dean's murder. It's the proof they need, carrying Leo's fingerprints as evidence. Art gets back to Stacy's place late, well past when he promised to return, and finds her anxious, having planned to travel for work. He tries to explain the impossible situation he's dragged her into, a world of conspiracies and hired killers that's hard for anyone outside it to believe. He asks her to look after Simon a little longer and gives her Tommy's number in case of emergency. She agrees, on the condition she won't call the police unless she absolutely has to, and Art thanks her with a kiss on the cheek before leaving, and she stands there, watching a wanted fugitive walk away, having chosen to trust him anyway. At the airport, Art meets Tommy with a plan. He'll fly to Washington to confront Kudrow directly, while Tommy quietly forges paperwork to get Simon into witness protection, a serious risk for both of them. Art hands over the carbon copies so that even if he doesn't make it back, the truth gets out regardless. That night, Art crashes Kudrow's lavish birthday party at his mansion. Kudrow's security stops him at the door, but Kudrow orders them to bring him down to the wine cellar instead. Standing face to face, Kudrow is smug, bragging that he's read Art's file cover to cover, an agent with a documented psychiatric history who just kidnapped a 9-year-old boy and walked into his home armed during his own birthday party. He tries to pin Leo's letters on Art himself, since Leo was killed only days earlier. Art points out that the letters are covered in Leo's own fingerprints. Kudrow brushes it off, more concerned with his wine collection than the accusation. Art grabs a bottle and takes a drink, telling him it says everything that he's more worried about his wine than a dead 9-year-old boy. He lays out his demand. Kudrow goes on national television and admits the Mercury program has failed, because public exposure is the only thing that can guarantee Simon's safety now. Kudrow scoffs, lecturing him about the real world, loyalty, and patriotism, arguing that one broken child's life means nothing next to thousands of agents in the field. Disgusted, Art kicks him hard in the chest, telling him it's for Simon's parents, and sends an entire wine rack crashing down around them. On his way out, Art calls Tommy, fully aware Kudrow's people are listening in. It's a deliberate setup, planting a fake handoff location for witness protection on a Chicago rooftop. Kudrow's men record the call and decide to wait until the boy boards a helicopter before making their move. Back in Chicago, Tommy walks into his boss's office and finds Kudrow already there, informing him the NSA is taking over the case entirely. Once Kudrow leaves, Tommy lays out everything to Lomax, showing him the carbon copy letters and confirming Leo's fingerprints are on them. The truth is finally undeniable, and the FBI moves to act. That night, Simon is brought up to the rooftop, with Kudrow waiting there disguised as a federal marshal. As a helicopter touches down, Kudrow moves to take Simon. But FBI agents led by Tommy storm the roof to stop him, and gunfire erupts everywhere. In the middle of the chaos, Art appears near the helicopter pad and tackles Kudrow, and the two grapple violently near the edge of the roof. Art's gun slips from his hand and drops off the ledge to the street far below. Elsewhere on the roof, a separate gunfight breaks out between Burl and the FBI agents. The helicopter's rotor wash blasts the plexiglass windows inward, and Burl is caught in the shattering glass, killed instantly. Kudrow, for a moment, gets the upper hand and pins Art down, but freezes when he notices Simon calmly walking along the very edge of the roof, the city lights glittering behind him. Simon looks down, spots Kudrow's gun caught on a ledge below, picks it up, and quietly hands it to Art. With the gun back in his hand, Art regains control of the fight. Kudrow, cornered, grabs Simon and holds him as a shield, but Art fires, hitting him, and pulls Simon free. Kudrow stumbles backward off the roof, crashing down onto a glass skylight below. With Kudrow dead and Burl gone, the truth about Mercury and the conspiracy to silence Simon comes out for good. Sometime later, Art and Stacy visit Simon at his new school, where he's living with foster parents and thriving in a place built for kids like him. Art brings him a new set of puzzle games, and Simon's teacher gently encourages him to greet his visitor. Art asks Simon to look him in the eye, and Simon does, recognizing the man who never gave up on him. He gets up and hugs Art tightly, something he almost never does with anyone, and Art hugs him back, visibly moved. By the end, Art isn't just remembered as the agent who lost a boy years ago. He's remembered as the one who saved one, and stayed until the job was done. And that's the full story of Mercury Rising, a movie about one government agent who refused to treat a child's life as acceptable collateral damage. If you enjoyed this recap, hit subscribe and turn on notifications